Prescriptive process modeler. The name prescriptive is given since the model prescribes a set of activities, tasks, quality assurance, and change control mechanism for every project. Each of the prescriptive model prescribes a workflow. So the prescriptive model will always prescribe a workflow. Under prescriptive model, we have two types of waterfall model and incremental modeler. Number one is my waterfall model. So in the waterfall model, you see that the first phase is the communication phase, in which you have project initiation and requirement gathering. The second phase is the planning phase, in which we have estimation, scheduling and tracking. The third phase is modeling phase, in which we have analysis and design. The fourth is the construction phase, in which we have coding and testing. And the fifth one is the deployment phase, in which we have delivery, support and feedback. So waterfall model, the model is also called as linear sequential model or classic life cycle model. There are two names given to the waterfall model, that is linear sequential model or classic life cycle model. Now the first phase in the waterfall model is communication. The software development process starts with the communication between the customer and the developer. So what happens in the first phase? The customer will communicate with the developer. Who is the developer? The software engineer. So the customer will communicate with the software engineer. According to the waterfall model, customer will state all the requirements at the beginning of the project. So customer will state the requirements. Whether the customer, suppose it's a website project, customer wants to how the front page should look, what are the features which the customer needs inside the website. All these requirements will be given by the customer to the developer, that is to the software engineer, at the beginning of the project, before the project development actual coding starts. Second is planning. It includes complete estimation, that is the cost estimation, and scheduling, complete timeline chart for project development and tracking. So now the developer will give a cost estimate to the customer, saying that okay, if you want to build this website, then this much is the cost which will be required. This much will be the costing of the website. Scheduling means this much time period. In this much time period, the project will be completed. Are you okay with this? So planning of cost and planning of the time will be done. Time duration and tracking. Third is modeling. Now when the customer says okay, fine, we are okay with the cost, we are okay with the time duration also, then the third step comes modeling. It includes detailed requirement and project design. So now the developer, software engineer, will make a project design on a paper or on a word. So basically a prototyping will be made, a prototyping model will be made, which will state all the requirements in detail in the form of algorithms and flowcharts. So flowchart will show the pictorial flow of the program, how will the program work, one by one steps. An algorithm will give step-by-step solution of the problem. Fourth is construction. It includes coding and testing steps. Coding, design details are implemented by using the appropriate programming language. And testing. So in construction, coding is done and testing is carried out to check whether the flow of coding is correct, to check whether there are errors. Example, in C program, by pressing the F7 key, we can check execution of the program at every step, or by using add watch, we can add the variables and watch the values of the variables. And to check whether the program is giving expected output. The fifth step is what? Deployment. It includes software delivery, support and feedback from the customer. Now, if the customer is suggesting some corrections to be made, the feedback will be given in form of some corrections, or suppose the customer wants some additional features, some additional capabilities, then changes are required for such corrections or enhancement. When you want additional features, you want to enhance the website, so you need certain requirements, certain changes are required for certain type of addition or enhancement of the features and for certain corrections. Next is merits or advantages of the waterfall model. The model is very simple and easy to understand and use. Waterfall model is a systematic sequential approach for software development. Hence, it is the most widely used paradigm for software development. It is a systematic and sequential approach. We were seeing that the first step is communication, second is planning, third is modeling, fourth step is construction, fifth is deployment. Every step is taking place one after the another in a systematic manner, in a systematic sequential manner. One after another means sequential. So we say that it is the most widely used paradigm for software development. In this approach, each phase is processed and completed at one time, thus avoids phase overlapping. So there is no overlapping of phases, as each and every phase takes place at one single time. After the first step is completed, only the second step will occur. It is very easy to manage since all the requirements are very well understood in the beginning itself. So in the communication phase, we saw that according to the waterfall model, the customer must state all the requirements at the beginning itself. So why is it easy to manage? Because all the requirements are well understood in the beginning itself. It establishes the milestones whenever the products are processed or reviews available. But there are certain disadvantages or demerits also. So what are the disadvantages or demerits? Problem in this model remain uncovered until software testing. So until the software testing process, that is the construction phase, coding and testing, until that testing is done, you don't understand whether there are any kind of problem created in the previous stages. So till construction you have to wait to understand whether there are any errors made in the previous stages. One of the disadvantage of this approach is blocking states. In blocking states, the members of the development team wait for other members to complete the dependent task. Due to this, huge amount of time is spent in waiting rather than spending time on some productive work. In today's world, the software is fast paced and thus waterfall model is not useful. So blocking states mein what is the problem? One team is doing some task, but it has to wait for the other teams to complete the dependent task. So if planning has to be done, before planning communication is required. So that team who is assigned the work of communication, if that team has not completed the work of communication, then the planning team has to wait. So for one team who has not completed a task, the other team has to wait because that task is dependent task. Due to this, huge amount of time is spent in waiting. So that planning team will have to wait and waste the time. Rather than utilizing on some productive work, there will not be any productive work done. Whereas in today's world, the software is fast paced and thus waterfall model is not useful. According to this model, the customer must state all his requirements at the beginning stage of development, which is difficult for the customer. So, knowing all the requirements in the beginning itself, it can be difficult for the customer. This model is a step-by-step, systematic, sequential approach. Ultimately, the customer gets the working version of the software too late, hence the customer requires patience. So it is a step-by-step sequential work. So after this last step is completed, after the coding testing, after testing is completed, then only deployment will happen, then only the customer will get the finished product, the final working version. So customer has to wait till that time. So the customer requires patience. This approach is actually not realistic and does not match with real projects. Also, it does not incorporate the risk assessment. What is risk assessment? There can sometimes be certain kind of risk in the project, some software or hardware risk or technical risk. So that risk will result in an unwanted outcome. But the software model, so you need certain methods to handle that risk. But software waterfall model does not incorporate risk management or risk assessment. Finally, it is useful for smaller projects only where the requirements are well understood in the beginning itself. So when the requirements are well understood in the beginning, you are working on a smaller project, then only this waterfall model will be a useful one. Working on a bigger project, it will not be useful, because in a bigger project, number one, all the requirements will not be, the customer will not be able to list down the requirements in the beginning. And number two, in a bigger project, risk is higher. So again, it does not incorporate risk also. So for bigger projects, waterfall model is a fail. For smaller projects, you can use the waterfall model. Thank you.